Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from AnthonysCustoms, and for this review, we are looking at the Marvel Legends new X-Men Wave Build-A-Figure Warlock figure, which is one that I have wanted since forever. I've always liked this character, and so I'm very happy that we finally got a Build-A-Figure for him. He doesn't have the most intricate paint job in the world, so there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about on that front, but he does have some really nice features, so it's a pretty cool figure. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands about 10.5 inches tall to the top of his hair, which makes him just about 26 centimeters, so he definitely does have some size to him. Obviously he's kind of lanky, but that's what he's supposed to be, so I think that's pretty good. Now, I did mention that there are some good things about this guy, but I'm going to start off by pointing out the bad so that we can end on a happy note. One of the bad things is that he is kind of floppy. He has a lot of looseness in his limbs and joints, which isn't necessarily ideal. Now, he doesn't need to be in the most dynamic of poses, and luckily he does have really nice articulation to kind of offset these issues in the floppiness, but it is worth noting that he is a very floppy figure. The other downside to this guy is that these tubers on his arms are far too short. They can really only peg in when his arms are in a very neutral pose. As soon as you try to move them in any way beyond a very neutral pose, they just pop off. So, I don't know, it might be worth it to just leave them disconnected, because in most cases they're going to kind of look like they're in place anyway. But they barely tab in the first place, so as soon as you do move him, they want to pop right out. So those should definitely be longer, or we should have alternate ones that are longer, because these are not, that's not a good design. Okay, so I did mention the paint was kind of basic, and it is. He's basically a molded black figure with this gold wash on him, which doesn't quite get the right look, but it's pretty darn close. So I think that's pretty good. I think if we wanted to have a little bit more accuracy, it would have been a far more intricate paint job, so I think this is acceptable. This is okay. And then they did do a pretty nice job for painting the face. We have the eyes and the mouth in there, and it looks nice. So I'm okay with that. We do have one interchangeable hand we'll mention before we do anything else. We have the one open hand right here, and they both have a hinge at the wrist and a swivel because they peg in. Then we have the fist hand on this side, and then we have the saw blade hand, which does not actually spin, unfortunately. I thought that would have been a cool feature. Not entirely necessary, of course, but it wouldn't have been too hard for them to do that, so I'm a little bummed out that they didn't. But we do have that, and it interchanges with the peg, and you can see the hinge right there. So that's kind of cool. Now, the sculpt on this guy is fantastic. It's loaded with those like hard surfaces, the really mechanical details, and it's all a pretty sharp sculpt. There's not any real soft areas, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so as far as the articulation goes, this guy is pretty fantastic. The head is on a ball peg that moves around very nicely on top of the neck, but then he does also have the hinge in there, so he can look up just fine. He can also look down very well, so that's pretty good. And due to his lanky nature, the head sits very nicely on the neck. I'm happy about that. For the shoulders, we do, of course, have our standard swivel, which goes around like that, and then we have our hinge. Some of them are really stiff, some of them not so much. This one seems to be pretty stiff, but it does go a little bit better than horizontal, so that's pretty good. We have our bicep swivel, which works very nicely. We have a double jointed elbow, however, this one is completely frozen on this end, so I'll show you on this side. It does work very well when they do work. So we have almost 180-degree bend, and then you can straighten the arm out completely, so that's very nice. And then, as I mentioned, the wrists have the swivel and the hinge, though you're not really going to get much movement inside these kind of gauntlet pieces here, so it's a little bit limited. For the torso, we have a pretty nice diaphragm joint, which I'm very happy about. It'll rotate around all the way, no problem at all. Then we also have a ratchet mechanism, though it doesn't look great. I can forgive it because it does afford fantastic posability. It goes all the way back and all the way forward, so you can really get this guy in a nice pose. Side to side, it just kind of leans on that ball peg a little bit, so he's not going to lean side to side really, but otherwise it's really, really good. We have ball peg hips, so we can bring the legs out pretty far, definitely better than 45. They can go pretty much all the way forward, so that's a good thing, and they can go pretty much all the way back. And then we have our thigh swivel, so full range of motion there. Double jointed knees, really good range of motion there, pretty much as expected. And then we have what I really like, which is the true ball hinge ankles. Now, there's not a ton of range of motion in here because of the way the boot is designed, but you can bring the foot back a little bit and it goes forward just a tiny bit, and then you have your standard Marvel Legends ankle rocker, but you can also rotate that around to help with that. So does not have the most range, but technically the articulation is there for the ankle, so I'm happy about that. And I'm really happy about the rest of the articulation and the overall look of the figure. Generally, I'm very pleased with this guy. The tuber thing is really the biggest issue. I can live with the floppiness and live with the somewhat sloppy paint. It's just those tubers are just, it's not a good design. They should have been longer and a softer material, but luckily it's on the back of the figure and not necessarily a huge problem. So I like this guy a whole bunch, and I definitely think he's a must-have for an X-Men fan, especially if you're a fan of the 90s cartoon. This guy was awesome in that, so you should get one. I like it. I think you will too. These are still nowhere except for Target, which only happens if you're super lucky, so you should probably do like me and just wait for them to show up at Big Bad Toy Store. It should be happening within about a month, so that's what I would do. I'm just borrowing this to review it since I know people who got them at Target, but I'm not going to bother hunting them down. So that's the story with that. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games. We do unboxings, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you turn on notifications so you don't miss any of that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.